I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. The chair was hard plastic. The air smelled of antiseptic and quiet worry. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice was strange. It was sharp and cold, a tone I hadn't heard in years. "Mom," she said, "we're going on a trip to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." Then the line went dead. Just like that. 45 years. 45 years of raising her, of scraped knees and bedtime stories, of sacrificing my own dreams so she could chase hers. All of it erased in a 20-second phone call. She had discarded me like garbage. But as I sat there, a strange thing happened. I didn't cry. I took a deep, shuddering breath. And I smiled. It was a small, secret smile. Because there was something my dear, clever daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I am 71 years old. And until that moment I thought I knew my daughter. My husband, Robert, passed away 6 months ago. A sudden heart attack. He was gone in an instant, right at our breakfast table. He had just served me coffee with cream just the way I liked it. He kissed my forehead. "Good morning, my love," he said. Those were his last words. The silence he left behind was a physical presence in our small house. Since then, Angela had been so helpful. Or so I believed. She visited 3 times a week. She helped with the funeral arrangements. She drove me to the grocery store. She even insisted I see a doctor for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say. Her smile seemed so full of love. Now I understand it was just full of convenience. The beach house was our sanctuary. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15. We poured our sweat and savings into that little place. Every summer, every birthday, every Christmas was celebrated there. The walls were soaked with our memories. Angela would bring her boyfriends and later her husband, Edward. I would cook and clean for everyone. It was our tradition. I never imagined she could look at that house and see only dollar signs. And the car. That old Ford pickup truck. It was Robert's baby. He washed it every Sunday. He changed the oil himself. He knew every groan and rattle of its engine. Angela knew what that truck meant to me. It was the last piece of him I had left. His scent, a mix of motor oil and peppermint, still clung to the worn seats. When she hung up, I stayed on that uncomfortable green chair. The quiet suffering of strangers surrounded me. But for the first time in 6 long months, I felt a profound calm settle over me. It was in that moment of absolute betrayal that I remembered. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a thick manila envelope. He looked at me with those serious, kind eyes of his. "Antonia," he said, "put this in the drawer of your dresser. Something happens to me, open it. But only when you feel ready." I had put it away and, in the fog of grief that followed, I had completely forgotten about it. But it was there. It was at home waiting for me. A nurse called my name. The doctor said I was in good health for my age. He told me to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled. My mind was miles away. I was thinking about that envelope. I was thinking about the coldness in Angela's voice. I was thinking about her husband, Edward. He had never liked me. He always looked at me as if I were a nuisance, an obstacle. I left the doctor's office and walked to the bus stop. According to my daughter, I no longer had a car. But as I waited, I couldn't help but notice that small smile returning. There was something almost poetic about it all. Angela thought she had stripped me bare. She thought she had left me with absolutely nothing. But she didn't know Robert. My dear, quiet Robert had always been a man who planned. He saw things other people missed. The bus arrived. I sat by the window and watched the city blur past. So many people, all rushing, all carrying their own secret tragedies and their own hidden triumphs. I had my own now, and I was about to discover what they were. When I got home, the house was silent. But it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't empty with grief. It was full of secrets. I went straight to my room. I opened the top drawer of my dresser, my heart thumping against my ribs. There it was. The manila envelope, exactly where Robert had told me to put it. His neat, strong handwriting was on the front. Antonia. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Felt thick. Heavy with unspoken words. I sat on the edge of the bed we had shared for so many years. The sun was setting, painting long shadows across the room. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I took a deep breath. I slowly opened the flap as if unwrapping a fragile gift. What I found inside stole the air from my lungs. It wasn't just a letter. There were legal documents, property deeds, bank certificates, and underneath it all, a handwritten letter from Robert. Tears blurred my vision as I recognized his writing. "My dear Antonia," it began. Asterisk, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive. I only ever wanted to protect you from worry. Over the years, I invested our savings. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties. This includes the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also have shares in 3 companies. They are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You were always rich. But now you are rich on paper too. Asterisk. My hands shook as I sifted through the documents. Deeds to houses in different neighborhoods. A condo downtown. A small motel on the coast. And there it was. The deed for the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for the past 10 years. He had put everything in the name of a company I had never heard of. Robert Investments Incorporated. According to these papers, I was the sole heir. There were also bank statements, accounts I never knew existed. The numbers looked like a mistake. They were unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years. A good, honest man. But he had also apparently been a brilliant investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied it in silence. And I never knew. In his letter, Robert explained everything. He kept it a secret because he didn't want to worry me. He also didn't want Angela to know. "You know our daughter Antonia," he wrote. Asterisk, if she knew we had this kind of money, her attitude might change. I always wanted her to love us for who we are, not for what we have. Asterisk, the irony was a physical blow. My daughter had just abandoned me, thinking I had nothing, when in reality I had everything. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked through the house, my house. I touched the old furniture Angela had always called outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall. There was one of her at 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap, laughing without a care in the world. Where did that little girl go? When did her heart turn so cold? The next morning the phone rang. It was Angela. Her voice was different this time. Softer. But I knew better now. I knew that softness was a weapon. "Mom, how are you?" she asked. "I wanted to tell you we transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller." "My share?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Yes, Mom. We obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Europe. Edward has an incredible business opportunity. 30% of my own things. How generous." "I see, honey. And when do you leave?" I asked. "This afternoon. Our bags are packed. We'll be gone for at least 6 months, maybe more. But don't worry, Mom. When we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment. Something that fits your needs." Fits my needs. As if she had any idea what I needed. "Hey, Angela. Have a safe trip." "Oh, Mom. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much." She hung up. I stood there holding the phone. And for the first time since Robert died, I laughed. A real, deep laugh that came from my gut. The situation was so absurd it was almost funny. My daughter had robbed me. She had kicked me out of my own life. And she spoke to me with a breathtaking condescension. All for a European adventure. But it wasn't the money that hurt. It was the ease of it, the casual cruelty. 45 years of my life, erased with a 2-minute phone call. That was the real wound. I checked my bank account online. Just as she said, a deposit had been made. It was an amount that probably seemed generous to her, but to me it was a slap in the face. They had sold the beach house for far less than it was worth, likely in a desperate rush for cash. And Robert's truck, they had practically given it away. The number was an insult. That afternoon, I watched from my bedroom window as Angela and Edward loaded their suitcases into a taxi. He was wrestling with 2 enormous bags. She carried an expensive-looking handbag. They were laughing. They kissed. They looked like 2 excited teenagers, planning their great escape. They never once glanced toward my window. They never said goodbye. As the taxi pulled away, disappearing down the street, I sat down in the kitchen. I made a cup of tea. I spread Robert's documents across the table. It was time to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer. I could sue her. I could immediately reclaim my property and expose her for the fraud she was. But something held me back. That felt too simple. Too clean. There was a better way to handle this. A more educational way. I found Mr. Peterson's business card. He was the lawyer who had handled Robert's affairs for years. He had been at the funeral. He had given me his condolences and told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. His voice was warm when he answered. "Mrs. Brooks, it's good to hear from you. How are you holding up?" "I'm doing well, Mr. Peterson," I said, my voice steady. "I need to see you. Urgently. I've found some documents from Robert that I don't quite understand." "Of course," he said. "Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" "I'll be there." That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his favorite armchair, reading the newspaper. He looked up at me and smiled. "It's about time, my love," he said in the dream. "It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a feeling I couldn't quite name. It wasn't happiness. The sadness was still there, a dull ache beneath my ribs. But there was something new. Determination. For the first time since Robert died, I had a clear, sharp purpose. I was going to get back what was mine. But I was going to do it on my terms, not in the way Angela expected. The next morning, I got dressed with care. I chose my wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant. I fixed my hair. I put on a little makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I didn't see a grieving widow. I saw a woman who was ready for a fight. Mr. Peterson's office was downtown in an old, elegant building with marble floors. He greeted me with a kind smile. But when I laid Robert's documents out on his polished desk, his expression changed. He read through them, his eyes widening. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, his voice hushed with awe. This is much more than I ever imagined. Robert was a very, very smart man. Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of—" "I know, Mr. Peterson," I interrupted gently. "I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." He explained that everything was in perfect order. The documents were ironclad. I was the rightful owner of everything. He also confirmed my suspicion. The sale of the beach house was completely illegal. Angela had no right to sell it. "We can get the house back immediately, Mrs. Brooks," he said, his voice firming up with professional resolve. "And we can proceed with legal action against your daughter for fraud." "No, Mr. Peterson," I said calmly. "I don't want to proceed with legal action. Not yet. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain a secret for now. Can you help me?" He looked at me, his head tilted with curiosity. But he nodded. "Of course. You are my client. What do you need?" "I need you to discreetly get the beach house back. Do whatever is necessary to nullify that fraudulent sale. And I need you to help me gain real, direct control of all my properties. Especially the building where my daughter lives." "I understand," he said. "It will be a process. It will take a few weeks. But it's completely feasible." "Perfect," I said. "And Mr. Peterson? I need no one to know that I am behind any of this. At least for now." When I left his office, I felt like I had woken up from a long, hazy dream. The city streets seemed sharper, the colors brighter. I had a plan. The weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I was living a double life. To the outside world, I was Antonia Brooks, the poor widow, abandoned by her heartless daughter. But in secret, I was Antonia Brooks, the wealthy businesswoman silently orchestrating the recovery of my empire. Mr. Peterson was efficient. He called me every few days with updates. The legal wheels were turning quietly and effectively. I decided to stay in my house. It was mine after all. Angela probably expected me to be packing my things, looking for a cheap room to rent. The thought made me smile. Every morning, I woke up and had breakfast at the same table where I had lost Robert. Then I would go for a walk. The neighbors would greet me with that look. A mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Aurora, my neighbor for 40 years, stopped me one afternoon while I was watering my petunias. "Antonia, dear," she said, her voice dripping with concern. "Is it true that Angela went to Europe and left you all alone?" "Yes, Aurora. She and Edward have business plans over there," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "But how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Robert didn't leave much money. If you only knew," I thought. "Don't worry, Aurora. I'll be fine." Do you need anything? I can bring you some food, help with groceries. You're very kind, but I'm fine. Really? She looked at me with that expression I was growing used to. It was the same look everyone gave me after the funeral. Compassion mixed with a little bit of relief that my tragedy wasn't theirs. These conversations happened everywhere. The butcher, the baker, the lady at the corner store. They all spoke to me in that soft, gentle tone they reserve for the unfortunate. I would nod, smile, and thank them. But a small, dark part of me enjoyed the performance. It was like being an actress in my own play. One Wednesday morning, Mr. Peterson called. "Mrs. Brooks, I have good news. I was able to nullify the sale of the beach house. The buyers were innocent parties. They didn't know the sale was fraudulent. They've received their money back without any issue. The house is yours again." "Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the building where Angela lives?" "That one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner of the company. But we need to make some administrative changes for you to have direct control. That should take another 2 weeks." "Perfect. Keep me informed." After I hung up, I sat with my coffee. I thought about Angela. It had been 3 weeks. Not a call. Not a message. Not a single postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she got her money. But I knew that was about to change. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Robert and I had taken 100 times. The house looked just as I remembered. Small, cream-colored, with a porch overlooking the ocean. The people who had bought it had put a few potted plants on the steps, but otherwise it was untouched. I sat on the curb across the street and just looked at it for an hour. I remembered Angela as a little girl running on the beach building sandcastles. I remembered Robert grilling fish on the barbecue. All those happy moments. All of it reduced to a number on a bank statement. An older gentleman came out of the house. He saw me sitting there and walked over. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners." "Yes, I knew them very well," I replied softly. "What a shame about what happened," he said, shaking his head. "They told us the elderly lady was very sick and needed to sell fast. We thought it was a steal. But it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the house back." "Did you know them personally?" I asked. "No. We did everything through intermediaries. But they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't." "What a sad situation. If he only knew." "Well," I said, "I'm glad you didn't lose your money." "Yes. Luckily everything worked out. Though now we have to look for another house. We really liked this one." I left with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money. It was the lies. Angela had invented a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her greed. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. That night, I called Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Robert's truck back too." "That will be more difficult, Mrs. Brooks," Mr. Peterson warned. "The truck was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it." My blood ran cold. "How is that possible?" "Apparently you signed that power of attorney a few months ago after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" The memory surfaced, hazy and painful. Angela had come over with a stack of papers. She had told me they were for the funeral arrangements, for handling Robert's pension. I was so lost in grief that I had signed without reading a single word. How naive I had been. "I understand, Mr. Peterson. Is there any way to get it back?" "We can try. But it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that document under deception or coercion." "Let's do it," I said, my voice hard as steel. "I want to get back everything they took from me." My strange routine continued. In the mornings I was the pitiable widow. In the afternoons I was a businesswoman. I studied Robert's documents. I spoke with Mr. Peterson. I planned my next moves. I was learning about finance, about investments, about legal loopholes I never knew existed. Robert had been even more brilliant than I thought. The building where Angela lived wasn't just profitable. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered something else. Edward, my son-in-law, was drowning in debt. He had taken out massive loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral. He had no idea he wasn't the real owner. When the banks discovered this and he was going to be in severe trouble. One Friday, Mr. Peterson called with a triumphant tone. "Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total direct control of all your properties. And I got Robert's truck back. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine. When I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation. A wave of relief washed over me. Excellent work, Mr. Peterson. Now, I said, taking a deep breath, I need you to help me with one more thing. Anything, Mrs. Brooks. I want you to send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? He asked. An eviction notice. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Brooks, he said carefully, are you sure you want to do this? Completely sure, I replied. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out just how important I really am. I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe? No, I said. I want you to give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling that's going to be very soon. I wasn't wrong. That very afternoon, Aurora came rushing over, her face flushed with neighborhood gossip. Antonia, did you hear? Edward is in trouble with the bank. My brother-in-law who works there told me. They're investigating some loans he took out using their apartment as collateral. But it turns out the apartment isn't even his. Really? I asked, feigning surprise. Yes. And it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess. What a complicated situation, I murmured. And the worst part, Aurora whispered, leaning closer, is that apparently Edward lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape his debts. It was perfect. More perfect than I could have planned. Angela had trusted him. She had sacrificed her own mother for him. And now she was about to discover he was a complete fraud. That night I sat on my porch and looked up at the stars. Robert used to say they were the souls of people who had lived whole lives watching over their families. If that was true, he was up there watching his plan unfold. Thank you, my love, I whispered to the sky. Thank you for taking care of me even after you're gone. The next day Mr. Peterson called. Mrs. Brooks, I have news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport. Alone. Alone. Yes. Apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors that they had a huge fight. I see. Did you send the letter? I'm sending it today. She should receive it tomorrow. I hung up the phone. The moment had arrived. Angela was about to discover that her poor, defenseless mother was not who she thought she was at all. Angela arrived at her apartment on a Tuesday night. I knew because Aurora, my ever-vigilant neighborhood watch, came to tell me the next morning. Antonia, your daughter is back, she announced, her eyes wide. I saw her go in last night with just one suitcase. She looked terrible, pale with dark circles under her eyes, as if she'd been crying the whole flight. Was she alone? I asked. Completely alone. And something strange, Antonia. When the doorman asked for her keys, she didn't have them. She had to get the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Edward had the keys. That meant he wasn't coming back. Or maybe Angela had finally discovered the truth about him and had fled. Either way, my daughter was home, and my little welcome gift was on its way. Mr. Peterson called that afternoon. Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed your daughter received it in person. Perfect, I said. How long did we give her? 30 days to vacate the apartment as per legal standards. But Mrs. Brooks, are you sure about this? She is your daughter after all. Mr. Peterson, I said, my voice firm. My daughter kicked me out of my life with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things. She treated me like an inconvenience. Now she is going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand, he said softly. I just wanted to be sure you had considered all the implications. I have considered them, I said. All of them. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, imagining Angela's face as she read that letter. The confusion, the disbelief, the slow dawning panic. She would think it was a mistake. But when she called to verify, she would find out it was all terrifyingly real. The phone rang at 8 o'clock the next morning. It was Angela. Her voice was a raw nerve of desperation. Mom, I need to talk to you. Urgently. Good morning, honey, I chirped. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that. I received an extraordinary letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. Must be a mistake. Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice? How strange. Who is it from? I asked, playing my part. From a company I've never heard of. Called, wait, let me find it. Robert Investments Incorporated. The poetry of it. Robert had used his own name. No, honey. I've never heard of them. Are you sure the letter is legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need your help. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman. And now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her. The money had probably run out. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was delicious. Now that she was alone, now that the man she chose over me was gone, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. It was showtime. I put on my most conservative gray dress. I tied my hair in a simple bun. I practiced my expression of a worried, resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected. A poor, vulnerable widow. She arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was genuinely surprised at how bad she looked. She was thin. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled. Mom, she said, her voice breaking. For a moment, I thought she would hug me, but she stopped, a flicker of shame in her eyes. Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee? We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I had first read Robert's letter. Angela looked so small, so lost. Mom, she began, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey, I said softly. No, it's not. I treated you horribly. I said awful things. And now... Her voice cracked. Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? I asked, my voice a gentle prompt. He left me. For a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush of humiliation. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape his debts here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure. All his debts. His mom. So many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't even the owner. How is that possible? Here was my opening. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem, she continued, her voice rising with panic, is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She finally broke down, burying her face in her hands. The sobs were real. There were tears of genuine, soul-crushing desperation. For a brief moment, the mother in me ached. I wanted to hug her, to tell her it would all be okay. But then I remembered her voice on the phone. The coldness. The dismissal. No, not yet. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I asked. I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent everything in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off. So, what are you going to do? I don't know, she whispered. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while. Just until I find a job and can get a small place. There was the question I had been waiting for. After everything, she now wanted the poor widow she had created to save her. Of course, honey, I said, my voice full of practiced compassion. This will always be your home. Angela looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. She hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom? After everything that happened? You're my daughter, Angela. That will never change. She stood up, and this time she did hug me. It was a desperate, clinging hug, the hug of someone drowning. I hugged her back, but my embrace was calculated. It was a strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now, just rest. Recover. Then we'll see what your options are. Angela left that afternoon to gather her things. I stayed in the kitchen. It had been so easy. She had come to me just as I had planned. Broken, desperate, and completely unsuspecting. This was only the first part of my plan. Having her under my roof would be the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I would let her settle in. I would let her feel safe. And then, when she least expected it, I would teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Brooks. I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That will take time, but it's feasible, he said. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, keep this an absolute secret. No one can know I am behind this. Of course, Mrs. Brooks. May I ask what your final plan is? My plan, Mr. Peterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter. But first she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. I hung up and poured myself a glass of the good wine Robert had been saving. The game had begun. And for the first time in a very long time I held all the cards. Angela moved in the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. That was all that was left of her glamorous life. I watched her unpack in her old childhood bedroom. The humiliation was written in every movement. Mom, I found this in the apartment, she said, holding up another manila envelope. It was among Edward's things. It has your name on it. My heart skipped a beat. It was another of Robert's envelopes. My name? How strange, I said, keeping my voice level. It was smaller than the first one. Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me, she suggested. It's possible. Can I see it? I opened it in front of her. Inside was a short letter and a small old-fashioned key. The letter said, Antonia, if you are reading this after receiving the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the central bank downtown. The number is 247. There is something there that can help you help her. But use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert. Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Dad had a safety deposit box, she whispered, a flicker of hope in her tired eyes. I had no idea. I lied smoothly. Your father never told me. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, honey, I said, pretending to be hesitant. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Mom, maybe there's something important. Documents or maybe something valuable that can help us. The desperation was palpable. She was clinging to any lifeline, any glimmer of hope. I was going to let her cling a little longer. Okay, I said after a carefully timed pause. We can go tomorrow. That night we had dinner together. She had cooked, trying to be useful. But the food tasted of guilt. He told me more about Europe. Each detail was worse than the last. Edward lied about everything, Mom. Not just the business. The debts too. I thought he owed a little money. Turns out he owes over $100,000. And the worst part is he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When we got married, I gave him some documents to handle our joint bank account. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know? I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say since we were married, I'm responsible anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where he is now. He just disappeared. It's like he vanished. Perfect. He had done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing the same betrayal I had felt. I'm so sorry, honey, I murmured. I didn't either, Mom. I thought Edward loved me. I thought we were building a life together. I was just an easy way for him to get money. He started to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not see who he really was? It was tempting to say I told you so, to remind her of all the times I had tried to warn her about him. But that would break my character. Love can be blinding, honey. Don't blame yourself. But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours. I took your house, your truck. Now we're 2 poor women trying to survive, all because of me. 2 poor women. If she only knew. If she only knew that at that very moment, I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time. The next day we went to the bank. Angela was a bundle of nervous energy. I played the part of the confused widow perfectly. A bank employee led us to the vault. He verified my ID and opened box number 247. Inside, nestled on black velvet, were jewels. Dozens of them. Rings, Necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some as family heirlooms from Robert's mother. Others were new to me. A letter from Robert explained their origin and their approximate value. Angela gasped. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes. Look at this emerald. This pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewels were worth around $200,000. It was a significant sum. But compared to the rest of my assets, it was like finding loose change in the sofa cushions. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But Mom, we could sell some of the pieces. With this money, you could get your beach house back and I could pay off some of Edward's debts. There was again. Even now, her first thought was to use this windfall to clean up Edward's mess. She still hadn't learned. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts? What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks will take everything I have. And technically, I don't own anything. Everything was in Edward's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, you won't get them back. I know, she said, her voice heavy. But what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No one will hire me. We took the jewels home. Angela spread them out on the kitchen table, her face a mask of conflict. It was painful to watch her reduce our family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. A few days later, Angela came to me, her face pale but determined. Mom, I think I can get $180,000 for the jewels, she said, her voice flat. It's less than I hoped, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked one last time. I have no choice, she replied. If I don't pay, they could come after this house. They might try to prove I have some legal connection to it. The irony was staggering. She was worried about losing a house that I secretly owned, to pay the debts of the man who had abandoned her, using money from the inheritance of the man who had built the very fortune that could save her. And how will you decide which debts to pay first? I asked. I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts with real collateral. Those are the ones that can lead to immediate foreclosure. I had to admit she had matured. The impulsive woman who sold my things without a second thought was now meticulously researching every financial move. The suffering was teaching her responsibility, but it was also making her fragile. That night, Mr. Peterson called. Mrs. Brooks, I have a full report on Edward's debts. The situation is worse than I thought. How much worse? He owes over $200,000 to several banks. And he has debts with private lenders. More concerning, he used falsified documents with your daughter's signature. That means Angela is legally responsible. It's complicated, he admitted. If we can prove she didn't know, we might get her out of some of it. But it will be a long, expensive legal battle. How expensive? For a good lawyer, probably $50,000. And there's no guarantee of success. I understand. And what if she just pays the debts? If she has the money, that would be the fastest solution. But I doubt she has access to that amount. Mr. Peterson, I said, my voice firm. I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to get my daughter out of these debts. But don't tell her anything yet. You're going to pay Mrs. Brooks? I'm going to do whatever is necessary to protect my daughter. But this has to be handled in a particular way. When I hung up, I found Angela in the living room, staring at the jewels with a sad, lost expression. What are you thinking about, honey? About Dad, she whispered. About how disappointed he would be if he could see what I've done with my life. Your father loved you very much, Angela. He would understand. No, Mom. He taught me to be responsible. To value family. Not to be selfish. And I did the exact opposite. I abandoned you for a man who was a liar. I sold our family's memories for cash. I ruined everything. For the first time, I heard genuine remorse. Not just regret for the consequences, but a proper understanding that she had done something morally wrong. People make mistakes, honey. The important thing is to learn from them. But how do I learn from this, Mom? How do I fix the damage I've done? There was the question I had been waiting for. She was ready. But it wasn't time yet. First, she had to hit rock bottom completely. The next few days were crucial. I watched Angela sell most of the jewels. She kept only the engagement ring Robert had given me and a small necklace that belonged to her grandmother. I saw her haggling with jewelers, her face tight with stress. It was painful, but it was necessary. "Mom, I got the 180,000, she told me one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. She had a plan, a spreadsheet of creditors and a payment schedule. That night, as she was hunched over her documents, Mr. Peterson called again. "Mrs. Brooks, I have important news. We've located Edward." "Where is he?" "In Paris. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to get French residency through a fake marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned." "A fake marriage?" "Yes. And we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country." "So that means Angela can get out of the debts?" "With this evidence, yes. We can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter won't have to pay a single penny for what Edward did. It was perfect. Mr. Peterson, start the legal process immediately. Don't tell my daughter anything yet. I don't want to give her false hope." "Understood. This will take about 3 weeks. Maybe a month." When I hung up, Angela looked at me. "Who was that, Mom?" "A wrong number," I lied. Lying had become so easy. I was living 2 lives. The poor, abandoned mother and the wealthy woman orchestrating her daughter's salvation. "Mr. Peterson," I said, a sense of finality in my voice, "I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth." He arranged it for Friday morning. I told Angela I had made an appointment with a lawyer who might be able to help, but I kept the details vague. She was nervous. "Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer," she fretted. "Don't worry about that now, honey. Let's just hear what he has to say." We arrived at Mr. Peterson's office. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now hung loosely on her thinner frame. She was wringing her hands, expecting more bad news. Mr. Peterson greeted us. "Mrs. Brooks, Miss Brooks, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing us," Angela replied timidly. "Although I should warn you, my financial situation is very complicated." "That's exactly what we're going to talk about," Mr. Peterson said, glancing at me. "But first, I need you to review these documents." He handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it. I watched her face as she read. Her expression shifted from confusion to utter disbelief. "I don't understand," she whispered. "These documents, they say that Edward forged my signature, that there's evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts." "That's right," Mr. Peterson said calmly. "We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove you were a victim of identity fraud. But how? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have the money for this." Mr. Peterson looked at me. It was my cue. "Angela," I began, my voice steady, "there's something I need to tell you." "What, Mom?" I took a deep breath. "The performance was over. Your father left me more than you knew. Much more." "What do you mean?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "Mr. Peterson, show her the other documents." He slid a second folder across the desk. The property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the full, staggering scope of Robert's secret fortune. Angela read in silence for what felt like an eternity. Her face was a canvas of conflicting emotions. Shock, confusion, and finally, a dawning, gut-wrenching comprehension. "Mom," she said, her voice barely audible, "this says you are the owner of the building where I lived." "Yes." "And that you have all these other properties, bank accounts, investments." "Yes. This means, when I sold the beach house, it was my house. And the sale was fraudulent." "I've already gotten it back," I said quietly. He stared at the papers, then at me. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the doctor's office." "You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night?" "Yes." The silence in the room was thick and heavy. Angela slowly closed the folders and looked me straight in the eye. "Why, Mom?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me?" This was it. The moment my entire plan had been leading to. "Because you needed to learn something, Angela. Something you couldn't learn any other way." "What?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost. The value of family. Of respect. Of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took. It was my dignity. It was our love. It was trust." Tears streamed down her face, but they were different now. They weren't tears of self-pity. They were tears of profound understanding. "I abandoned you when you needed me most," she whispered. "Yes. I treated you like garbage." "Yes. And you saved me anyway." "Yes," I said. "But not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself." Mr. Peterson gently intervened. "Miss Brooks, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. You are completely free of legal problems." Angela looked at me, a new question in her eyes. "And the cleaning job?" "You can quit if you want," I said. "But I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that job is teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of every single dollar you earn." Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in 20 years. It wasn't a daughter looking at her mother. It was a woman looking at another woman with newfound respect. "Do you forgive me, Mom?" "I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself?" "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize them." Mr. Peterson discreetly left us alone. We sat in the silence of his office, the weight of everything that had happened settling between us. "Mom," she said finally, "I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you really were the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson." "What lesson is that?" "That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me going was knowing I had a home with you. That no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela." "I know," she said. "But I also know that I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it. Every day. With respect. With gratitude. With actions, not just words." We left Mr. Peterson's office that day with a new relationship. We were no longer just mother and daughter. We were two women who had been through a fire and had chosen to walk out of it together. The following weeks were about rebuilding. Angela now knew I had the resources to solve all her problems, but she chose to make a different decision. She decided to keep her night cleaning job. "Mom, I need to finish what I started," she told me. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened." "Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself." "It's not a punishment," she said. "It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now." I watched her put on her simple work uniform, something unthinkable for the woman who had left for Europe. But she stood taller now. She was no longer a broken woman. She was someone who had found her own dignity in honest work. Aurora came to visit, her curiosity palpable. "Antonia, strange rumors are going around. People are saying you're not as poor as we all thought." "People talk, Aurora." "Yes, but they're saying you got your beach house back and somehow solved all of Angela's legal problems. That costs a lot of money." I poured her a cup of tea. It was time. "Robert left me more than anyone knew, Aurora." "Much more." "How much more?" "Enough," I said. "And why did you pretend to be poor all these months?" I told her the whole story. Her eyes widened as I spoke. "Antonia," she said when I finished, "that is brilliant and terrible at the same time." "Terrible?" "Yes, because you let your own daughter suffer. But also brilliant because I understand why you did it. If you had just given her the money, she would have learned nothing." "Exactly," I said. "But didn't it hurt you? To see her suffer?" "Every single day," I admitted. "But I knew if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't learn the full lesson." "And do you think she learned it?" "Look for yourself," I said. "She knows she has access to a fortune, but she chose to keep her job. She knows she could move into a luxury condo, but she decided to stay here with me." "I saw her at the grocery store yesterday," Aurora said, a smile spreading across her face. "She was buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her job. She used her own money." That night, when Angela came home from work, she had a story to tell. "Mrs. Johnson asked me today if I was the daughter of the rich lady from the north side of town. I told her yes. And you know what she asked me? He asked me why I was still working. So I told her, I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. What did she say? She laughed and said, Honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich. Mrs. Johnson was a wise woman. Angela sat down beside me. Mom, I've made a decision. I'm going to keep living here, but as a grown woman who chooses to share her life with her mother. I'm going to pay my share. I want our relationship to be a partnership. Angela, you don't need to. His mom. I do. Before I took your love for granted. Now I want to be a woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life.